Oh yeah, I'm corning all over the place. Oh yeah. Oh boy. Yeah. Okay. Well, this is my new game. Or this is it so far. Uh, you may notice the plants are a little genetically modified. just just a little. Don't worry, it gets way worse in that. It's gonna get way worse in the actual game. But let me tell you what I have done. So all I really have right now is the player and the crop growth mechanic. The player model I made myself. Uh, he's kind of like the player model from the last game, where he's a bit low poly, I guess. Except instead of turning his entire body when he moves or when he tilts his head, sorry, instead of tilting his entire body when he looks up and down or whatever, he tilts just his head now. Uh, yeah. Um, yeah, the scripts I got from a thing on the Unity assets to why is it upside down? Like I said, they're a little genetically modified. Okay. Yeah, I got the script for the player controller on the Unity assets store, and everything else I made myself. Which includes one of the few scripts I have in the game so far. They also have a third person, like the last game. Yeah. Just thought I'd say that. So, one of the only scripts I have so far is crop growth, but this is one of the really important ones. Let me explain to you how it works. I'm going to 0.1. I'm going to demonstrate right now. So, when the crop starts in the world, which is when it's placed or when the game starts, if it's already in the world at the beginning of the game, it will make all of these segments. All of these. And then it'll turn them off to save on processing power by not having to immediately render 1,000 objects that aren't being used. Or in this case, 100. Or probably more like 300, whatever. And then it will place the bottom segment, and then each of the following segments will rise up out of the previous, will re-enable itself, and then rise up out of the previous one. Like I said, they're a little genetically modified. I don't quite know why it does that part. You know, where it went upside down. At least it's not tearing the fabric of reality apart like it was in one of the previous videos in the playlist. I think the reason it did that is because there was like floating point error buildup, and all of these are the child of the previous object. Meaning that eventually it would get to the top and they'd be so squished that they'd be kind of like infinitely thin, and the lighting engine wouldn't know how to work exactly. But yeah, it rises up out of the previous one, mostly. And, well, it doesn't have to rise up. It can rise up. It can actually rise to any next point. What I mean by that is here. There is a point right here, and this is where the object heads to. point can actually just be anywhere, and it'll work. See? I made it like that so I can have more modular of a crop design. So I didn't have to redo the entire script just to do a different crop model. Like I could have strawberries or grapevines or anything, basically. And they could all grow in the same way, which is instead of growing up, growing to the next point. I made the model in Blender, by the way. The corn husk is a little scuffed, but don't worry about it. You're never going to see that anyway. Yeah, and then when it reaches the top, which it should do any moment now. There we go. When it reaches the top, it stops growing the net. Or sorry, when it reaches the top, it grows this part, which is the top of the corn plant in this case, and then it just stops and then changes itself to a finished crop instead of a growing crop, which then lets it be removed from the growth incrementer next time around. I'll explain to you what all that means right now. So, when the object starts, for every number in max growth, as in the max growth is 100, so repeat this stuff 100 times. If it is the first segment, make it the bottom segment, and make it the model of the bottom, which would be this corn bottom. If it is, and then set the next point for it to go to the next point on the object, which is inside of the same model. Okay, what I mean is it is inside. The next point starts inside of the model. This here is next point. It is inside the same model as crop bottom. What did I change? And then set the rotation to 90 degrees upward to 90 degrees so that it's standing straight up. And then set the parent to this object. If I didn't do that, it would be the bottom crop would be right about here, or bottom would be right about there, and that would be not really good, because then it wouldn't be one coherent unit. Okay, and then after it has been set, after the parent has been set to this object, set the previous point, which is the object. This is the point that the next segment will grow out of. So set that point to this object, or to this object, so that it grows out of this object. And then add the crop to the segment data, which is all this. So segments data, it turns all this into all this, and then after that, set previous point to this point. Sorry, after all that, add segments, or add to the segments list this. After this object, and then after that, set the previous point, which is the spot the next crop will grow out of, to this, to the bottom. Now, the reason that it is like that is because in here, Well, this information is only set once, or at least this previous point information is only set once. This isn't exactly necessary, but whatever. So for this is the part that makes it grow. I have it as an integer, a float, because why waste an update function that would be updating 60 frames every second when I can have it only update when it needs to. And so yeah, it sets this number, those don't really matter. Segment dot, yeah, and then transform the object that this is associated with. Transform its position by vector3 lerping it, or moving it like on a line between one point and the next, between the previous point's position and the next point's position. Next point is a position. And then do that by the percentage, which is this. So that, which I think theoretically means if you can change this value somehow, you can modify this, I guess. Doesn't really matter, but kind of neat. Might be used for like growing a crop backwards intentionally later. Yeah, so it puts it on like so there's a line from this point to this point. If this percentage or distance percentage is like 20%, put this at 20% along the line, or at 20% of the line between this and this. Yeah. Now, for the next segment, it is the same thing. Except now we are rotating it 90 degrees around, I guess, so that all the corn doesn't grow on one side. So, yeah, same thing here. Yeah, except with the rotation now. And then this one is, so these are all the middles, and this one is the top. Yeah, there's no next point on the top because it's the top, and you can't really grow out of that. Now, after that has all been done, for every segment that has been created, disable it, or disable it. Jesus. For every segment that has been created, disable it to save on processing power. So that you don't have to render a million objects that are currently not being used. Next, there is the growth incrementer. Add this. This being the corn crop object, not any of the segments. And then, if this is the first object in the growth incrementer, start the growth increment void. Now let me show you what that is like. So, yeah, I'm using a separate void here instead of this because I can't figure out how to do a start coroutine from over here. Doesn't really matter though. Okay, so in growth increment, if crops are, or if there is more crops than 0, or if there is more objects in this list labeled crop, sorry, not objects, scripts of crop growth, which is this. If there's more of those than 0, as in, is there anything in this list, wait this amount of time, then for every crop that is in there, do this debug, and then step the growth of that crop, which we will get to in a moment, and then current crop plus plus, and then wait again. If there is nothing in here, do a yield break. I tried doing it without the yield break. The game crashes. So, when this, the current crop, equals the crops.count, stop every coroutine. This is important because otherwise I get an error for saying that it is being modified while it is working, or that this is being modified while it's working, and it doesn't like that. The reason, or the thing modifying it, is cycle crop list. It works like this: crops clear for each object that is tagged growing crop, which would be a crop that is not yet grown fully. Add it to the crops list, and then start up the code, and then start up the growth increment again, and then set current crop to 0. You know what? I should probably have it like that. Hang on, let me see if that still works. Okay, I tested it. Yes, it still works. So, the reason I am doing it like this is so that I don't have to have all of the crops growing at once. And that's bad because it would tank the frame rate quite a lot. Now, instead, it'll just tank the rate the crops grow at, which can easily be mitigated by making the crops grow faster each time they're trying to be grown. See how these are growing slow now? See? Yeah. And the reason I have it like that is because I plan on having, entire fields of crops. Because this is a farming game. Alright. Now, moving back on to crop growth. Okay. Now we get to the step growth section. Does a debug for stepping the growth, or telling me that it's working. This part is here so that I don't get an error. I don't know exactly what happens that's important, that yada yada, that I don't know exactly if something breaks when I don't have this, but I just don't like it yelling at me. So, if segment is not equal, or if it is not on at the beginning, which none of them are on at the beginning, turn it on. And then set its local position to the same as every other crop, which is 0, 0, -4. And then set its local scale to 1. And then name it. Now, let me show you why I have it like this. Because you may be thinking, Oh, this doesn't seem very necessary. You're just setting things to be exactly how they, already are. No. They aren't already like this, in fact. Let me show you what they are like. So, you saw that part where the crop, grew backwards? Yeah, the reason I'm accepting it growing backwards there is because the alternative is much worse. Yeah. It becomes incomprehensible. And it wasn't even done. It became incomprehensible like halfway through. Like, yeah, I don't want to do that. This is I can barely see anything on the screen. like look at this. How do you play? So that is why I have those. Okay, and then after this, I get this so that I can shorten this. Yeah. And then segments data, which is all this stuff. For the current segment, change the distance percentage, which, if you remember correctly, acts like a void in the way I have it set up, to add growth rate plus excess growth. This is the part that makes it grow. Now, if it is over, if the current distance percentage, which is this, the distance percentage of the current crop, is over or is greater than or equal to 1, then if it is greater than or equal to 1, set the next point for the next object to be the current point of this object. If I didn't do this, the next point, if I didn't refresh where it thinks the next point is, all of the crops would grow into the same spot. Which, if you want to have a 100 crop tall, piece of corn, it is not exactly what you want. And then increment to the current segment. This one actually serves more of a purpose. Okay. Now, if the current segment is greater than or equal to the amount of segments in this in this crop, say that it is, or set the tag to finished crop, so that on the next refresh of the growth increment, it will not be in there. Now, if it is not that, do this stuff, yeah. And also do this. If the current distance percentage is greater than 1. Meaning, if it grew more than one segment when it was supposed to grow one segment. As in, like, you can grow 2 segments at once. Watch this. I mean, you can even grow the entire plant at once if you want. See? But, I mean, you can also grow, like, 0.7 as the growth rate, and then excess growth will be 0.4, so it'll add 0.4 to the next growth, so that you don't waste your effort. Excess growth is this minus 1. And then this is here to set excess growth to 0 if it is less than 0.001. This is here so that floating point errors with, how numbers are stored don't slowly build up and make it grow faster and faster as the plant, continues to grow. That would be kind of inconsistency inducing, I guess. Okay, now, if excess growth is greater than or equal to 1, meaning it's growing more, or meaning it's growing like 2 segments at a time, then you want it to be able to grow 2 segments or more at a time. So excess segments is math.floorInt or floor2int excess growth. This takes the whole number of the growth, so minus all the other stuff, and then it uses that in one of these. The reason there are 2 is because I couldn't figure out how to make it in 1. And then after that, excess growth is minus or equal to excess segments. Excess segments is then equal to 0. So what these do is this. It is just the entire step growth function again, but with a for int I equals 0 or whatever loop. What sets these apart is that this one has a less than or equal to sign, and the other one has just a less than sign. I don't know why they need to be different, but I do know that if it's less than or equal to, it works for evens, or maybe not. It works for even amounts of crop growth, as in like if you have 2, it'll grow the extra 1 segment just fine. But if you have crop growth of 3, where it's trying to go 3 segments at a time, meaning 2 extra segments, it won't work for some reason. But less than will. I have no clue why, but I just want to be done. This if function here checks if it is odd or even. If the excess segments are odd or even or not. It's like, not or not, whatever. And then sends it to the corresponding one. And then that is everything. There's this, which is what I was using to quote corn all over the place earlier, but this is just very basic. It's not exactly complicated. And then there's all the player scripts, which got from the asset store. There is an FPS counter, which I got from a tutorial. It uses an update function to check how often it's updating, I guess, and based off of that, it makes out the FPS or something. Honestly, it's not really important. Then there's the camera controller. Just lets you toggle the cameras, and then disables and then disables or enables the free fly camera, which is that third-person camera thing I was using earlier. Free fly camera is just this. This is all the buttons to press with it. Left arrow, right arrow. These are like the looking directions. And then yeah, this is for if you want to turn it, I guess. Honestly, I mainly am filming this video to show you about the crop growth. I think I've probably already shown all this stuff before in a previous video on a different video game I was making. But yeah, that is all I have for right now. I hope you enjoyed. Oh god, this is a 30-minute video. well, if you got to the end, thanks, I guess. Um, I'm going to try to work more on this video game. I might not have as much time as I was hoping to work on it, but yeah. The reason I'm switching from the previous video game to this one is because I think this one is a lot more completable. I think I can actually avoid scope creep in this one and get it done in a reasonable amount of time, considering it's a farming game and it's not exactly mechanically complex. You just farm. There's only really one way you can program that. Okay, I guess there's two ways, because I did it a different way, but whatever. See you later. Bye.